Everyone, this is Kobi from Amor IT Solutions. Today, I wanted to talk about uh, if you're a business owner, making sure that you are using a good IT company to set up your network, especially if you're a new business or you're moving into a new building, you're putting in new networking equipment. You want to give the IT company that you're working with a good representation of what you're going to be running as far as devices, meaning computers, printers, wireless access points, how many users or how many clients you might have or customers inside of your business. Um, and a good rule of thumb for us is that for each customer that is in your business, you have to think that they're going to have at least one device that they're going to try and connect to your guest network if you have one. So sometimes it's more than two. Sometimes people will have a cell phone or a smartphone, and then some people will have, like, say, a laptop that they bring in. And then again, that just depends on what business that you're running, whether it's a restaurant or a hotel. It can vary, but on average, at least every customer is going to have at least a smartphone, typically. So a few days ago, we were contacted by a business. It was a restaurant business, and they were stating that they're having a lot of issues with slowdown in their network. They said that their POS machines that they use to ring up customers were running slowly. Their network, just in general, was slow. LAN connections and wireless connections. They had numerous customers that would complain about not being able to connect to the guest network, or not being able to, or it being very slow. So we did go in there and we looked at their network. We did confirm a lot of the things that they were saying were issues for them. Sat down with the manager and spoke with them and just asked them, again, what issues are you having with your business and what would you like to see resolved? It was pretty alarming to us that this was a company that was, I think, only in business for about maybe 5 or 6 years. And there was the only thing that they were pleased with, I guess, was their camera system that they had. Every other aspect of what they had, whether it was the POS machines that they were using to ring up customers and take orders, they have handheld devices that weren't working properly. They had telephones that they weren't happy with, numerous things. So once we sat down and talked with them, we asked them if we could look at their network room. They took us back to our network room, and we were kind of not shocked with what we saw because, as IT people in IT, you go in and you see a lot of what we call, messes from other IT companies sometimes that go in and they don't do a very good job of setting up a network. It's not a very clean install a lot of the times. Not every time, but a lot of times it's not a very clean setup. So I want to go through some of the pictures and some of the issues that we saw while we were there. So this first picture here is their network rack. Okay, and you can see at the top that there is pretty much a spaghetti mess of networking cables. This is pretty common to see when we go in and looking at jobs that other people have done. To zoom in here, you can see here they have a couple battery backups, and what the manager had told me is that this battery backup here, that's a rack mounted backup, actually wasn't working. Plus, they had a backup down around this area. I think it's right here, that was actually hanging from the wall. That one also had died on them. So they call in a company that comes in and puts in this battery backup and just kind of shoves it on the shelf. Now, another thing that you'll notice is that there is two switches up here, rack mounted switches. These are both 24 port switches. And then they have another switch kind of hidden back here that is a 16 port switch. And then they have a Cisco router, and they also have a TP-Link router. So they have two routers, which we weren't quite sure why they were running two routers. But here's the first router. It's a Cisco RV110W. Okay, and for the size of this business, this router is way underpowered for what they needed. So you go and look at the specs of that particular router. It is used for small office or home office. But the problem is a few things here. You can see here where it says that it's a 10100 switch. The ports on the back are 10100. That's an old router. All routers pretty much nowadays are gigabit speed, which means that this 10100 router, this customer had their internet provider, their speed was well over 100 megs download. Okay, so what that means is this router can only push up to 100 meg. This customer actually had, I believe it was 200 meg. So that is an issue. It's also an issue with the fact of file transfer speeds. You're going to get slow file transfer speeds with a 10100 ports on the back of this router than you would if you had a gigabit router. One of the other problems that we found is that, and right here, performance. The throughput of this router is 9 megabytes per second. Or 90 megabytes per second. Which again means that their 200 megabit internet connection, they're never going to see that speed using this router. Another issue is that their VPN speeds, their virtual private network. If they were to have a VPN where they could connect, say, a manager or the owner wanted to connect from home to the business, the VPN speeds that they're going to see on average are only 5 megabytes per second. That's pretty slow for a router. Some of the other issues, one of the major issues is active WAN clients. Okay, this is what they're saying, how many devices that router should be able to handle. So when I say devices, I mean a smartphone would be one device. A laptop would be another device. A wireless access point can be a device. This router is rated up to 32 clients or devices. Okay, so the issue is nowadays is that, most home users, not most, but some home users, they could have half of those devices just in their home. Now, if we go back and look at the pictures from this business, again, remember, they have two 24 port switches, and this first 24 port switch is completely filled except for, I think, one port. The second switch here looks like it's maybe half, not quite half full. Okay, so let's just say they have 35 ports that they're using off of those two switches. Down here, they have another 16 port switch that is being completely utilized. It has all the ports are being used. So this router here, I think it had 2 ports that was being utilized. So you get an idea. Let's see, 23, what do we say, 35, not great at math, but 35, what was that, 51 devices between the switches. And that's just an estimate. So I would venture to believe that at any point, let's just say that they had 40 to 45 devices that were running all at the same time. I mean, remember, this is a business. So obviously they're running, they're not a 24/7 business. They do have, business hours that are, they're open from morning until late afternoon, I believe, or maybe even early evening. So, back to this device, it's 32 clients just is not going to be able to handle the amount of traffic that they have going through their business. So why an IT company? One, they should have known this. Two, why are they putting in this type of router for this business? Well, I can tell you from my experience, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but I have seen IT companies that they will use some of the cheapest equipment that they possibly can so that their margin is higher. And they hope that when they put this equipment in, that the customer's not going to have any issues. And oftentimes they do, and oftentimes the customers just won't complain about a lot of the issues that they're having. This customer has complained quite a bit to different companies because they have a POS system, they have a phone system, they have several systems in there, and it doesn't, the IT company that they're using is not giving them support for all of these. They kind of have to go through different companies for tech support, and they find themselves, losing track of who they need to call or phone numbers, and people that they would call wouldn't get back with them. They would set dates to try and help them either over the phone or send someone out, and oftentimes they wouldn't show up or call. So this is a big reason why we like to tell our customers that if you want to find a good reputable IT company and see if that IT company will actually be able to service all of your needs, or at least most of your needs, because then you're only going through one company for any issues that you have, opposed to having 3 or 4 different companies that you have to contact with each individual issue that you have. Okay, so going back to the pictures here, this other router here, it's a TP-Link TLR 860 8-port cable DSL router. Okay, so again, what we did is we plugged into these 2 routers. This router was being used as their main router for running most of their equipment. And what they had is they have POS systems, like I said, to ring up customers. They have obviously a phone system. They have camera systems. I believe the cameras are inside and outside of this facility. Wireless network, a guest wireless network, amongst some other things that they have running there. So again, this router way underpowered. We found that when plugging into this router, that this actually was their guest network, their guest wireless network. So for the customers that come in that want to connect to the internet, this is the router that they have set up for that. On top of that, we don't have pictures of them, but the access points the wireless access points that they had throughout the business, there was a few access points. One of them wasn't even working. And we noticed from going into that business that, it had been some weeks that access point, we could tell just by looking at it, wasn't working. When we did some speed tests on the guest network, we were getting under 1 megabit download and under 1 megabit upload. So if you can imagine, let me just tell you, if you wanted to watch YouTube, okay, or if you wanted to sit down and watch Netflix and you're streaming video, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that at those speeds. And that's what we ran into. Took us forever to be able to connect. Took us forever to pull up web pages, to be able to pull up any type of video streaming website or application. And that is due to this router being underpowered. And the guest network, this router, basically they have two routers that are hooked together. And the rule of thumb with IT is that you switch when possible and route when necessary. Okay, so what that means is you want to use switches instead of using multiple routers. Okay, so what that means is you want to try and have one router, and you can have multiple switches connected to that router. The reason why you don't want to have more than one router is because you run into what's called double natting or multiple firewalls. Each router has their own firewall that protects your devices from the outside world. If you hook two routers together on a network, you have essentially two firewalls. And what can happen is you can have speed issues, you can have connectivity issues, you can have problems with voice over IP phones where you're having voice quality issues or dropped phone calls. You don't want to run two routers if you can get away with it. Looking at this network, there's really no reason why they had to have two routers. One router would have sufficed or been sufficient. Here's a speed test that we ran. Again, I believe they said they had 200 megabits download. I'm not sure what their upload is. It's probably 20 to 25 megabytes upload, knowing that they have Spectrum internet. And I want you to take a look at their speed here. 19.98 megabytes per second download, 2.82 megabytes upload. Again, I told you they have a 200 megabytes per second download speed and probably around 20 to 25 megabytes upload. So this is a huge reason of why they're saying that their speeds are so slow. If you can imagine running at 20 megabytes per second on a business that I said could have 40, 45, 50 devices or clients, things that are running all at the same time, needing internet access, many of them needing internet access, you can see why they're starting to have problems. And again, this is, one of the big things that we see with companies, that IT companies that come in and, like I said, they underpower or they put in cheap networking equipment, cheap routers, cheap switches, cheap access points. They don't do a good job in cable management with the cabling in the network. They don't label anything, and that's one of the things that we saw over here. There's no labeling, so they've got a couple patch panels, but there's no labeling that actually tells you what devices are going to what port. So pretty much an IT person that has to come in here has to go in and investigate and figure out actually what ports are running what throughout the business. And what they need to do is clean up this kind of spaghetti mess, as we said, with these network cables. And then what they should do is label everything so that it makes it easier for themselves when and if they get called back by the customer with an issue, or another IT company comes in and has to help them. They don't have to sit here for, a couple of hours trying to figure out what is going on and what is plugged in, what's working and what's not. Really sloppy work. We see this a lot. Again, like down here, you got a power strip that's just hanging by its cable. But this is a pretty common occurrence. And this is a pretty common occurrence of what we see. So, um, my getting back to it, my point is, like I said in the beginning, do your research on an IT company, ask questions, write down things that you want to ask them, sit down and have a meeting with them. Don't just talk to them on the phone. Ask them some of the hard questions. Some of these questions can be, how long have you been in business? What type of things can you provide for us? Or giving them a list of things that you want to see happen in your business or for your business, as far as, hey, we want to have a guest network so that people can come in and they can connect to the internet and have a good experience and not complain about not being able to connect, or slow connection speeds. We want to be able to run, these types of devices for our business. Obviously, we're doing this to make money, so we've got registers, we've got camera systems, and you want to have someone that has enough knowledge in IT that knows how to, one, set it up so that you're not going to have slowdowns, you're not going to have interruptions in service. Your 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 devices are going to be protected, okay, from the outside world. Um, these are just some of the things that should be standard with an IT company. But a lot of businesses that don't know a lot about networking or IT, they're not going to know these things. So they have trust in these companies that come in here, and this is, some of the things that can happen to them. So, we spoke to them, and of course, you come in as the second person, cleaning up a mess from something that really should have been set up the right way the first time. So you can imagine the customer that you're talking to, the manager, the owner, or whatnot, how frustrating it's got to be for them that they probably spent a ton of money on all this networking equipment to find out that a lot of it is not good equipment or underpowered networking equipment for what they're using. Now they're stuck, 5 or 6 years later, and really they were having this issue, I think, a few years ago. But, now they've got to spend a ton of money to get the right equipment in there to have their network rack cleaned up with all the wiring, having all the stuff configured. It takes time, and time obviously is money. Like you heard us say before with our company, time is money. Um, we'll see what happens with this company. They're gonna hopefully contact us back. If we don't hear from them this week, we'll reach out to them early on next week. But yeah, this is a huge problem. This is a huge problem that we see, especially in this area. Now, there's some times that you go into businesses that will call and ask for our help, and they'll show us the network room, and you know, it looks awesome. It's set up right, set up good. Um, and it's easy for the technician to go in there and pinpoint what issues they're having, so they're kind of in and out. And how that helps the customer is that if you're a business, an IT business that works and gets paid by the hour, well, that customer is going to want you in and out. They're not going to want you there all day for one issue. If you can get in there and fix something within the hour, opposed to being there for 4 or 5 hours because a network is such a mess and you're just trying to figure out what's wrong with it, I mean, the customer is going to be real happy going in there and having you in and out in an hour, and they spend 1/6 of the cost, or a third of the cost. So if you're a business owner, really think about this. Whether you're an existing business, whether you are just starting out in your business, or you're moving from one location to another, really take the time to look at the IT companies that you are interested in and sit down and have an interview with them like you would if you were trying to hire an employee. That's how I would look at it. Interview that IT company just like you would if it was an employee that, or a person that was coming in applying for a job. So that's all I have. Just food for thought. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, it like I said, it's sad seeing this type of thing, but we see it a lot. We feel bad for customers. Sticker shock when you have to go in there and tell them, hey, they didn't set this equipment up right, or it's not the right equipment, and this is the cost of having to get you set up so that you don't have issues. Yeah, never want to really have that conversation with customers, but we seem to have a lot of them like that. So, anyways, hope you guys have a great day, great night, great rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we have new content. Also, if you'd like to know more about us, we have several social media pages: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you would like to hire us for any network consulting or IT needs, please head over to amoritSolutions.com, fill out our contact form, and let us know what we can do to help you out. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for all your support, and we hope to see you in the next video.